Yani Neko continues to be one of the most compelling anime airing at the moment. While initially branded as a fanservice slop anime, it is now veering into societal commentary, exposing some of Japan's darkest secrets. But despite that, the series somehow finds time to reveal some of the goofiest world lore yet, with the Beastfolk being, an alien race from another planet entirely. And need I tell you about the tragedy that is Imoko? Yes! I do! Like the video and subscribe if you love Yani Neko. The opening scene is rather hilarious, but also depressing too. Mostly because this is the setup for the next stage in developing Imoko's character, one of my favorite characters in the entire series. We've seen throughout the first 4 episodes that Imoko has a troubling time with her sister, and for that reason, she has her own insecurities. For example, she gives off the vibe that she doesn't fully appreciate that she is a Beastfolk because of how she tries to act like a human rather than animal, to the point that she doesn't even meow. Whereas Yani Neko is constantly adding a nya to nearly everything she says. This opening furthers that by having Imoko taking away all of Yani Neko's smokes, much to the dismay of Yani Neko, who is literally in tears crying and begging Imoko to just give her another chance at those sweet, sweet death sticks. And of course, as she leaves, she reconsiders because she can't bear to hear her sister crying out like that, even though it is for her own good. What made this a compelling moment for Imoko was that, just like a cat being locked out and mewing to come back in, Imoko likes this. She likes this kind of dynamic, or rather, she prefers it, because much like the landlord who can't help but give Yani Neko so many chances, despite being the a-hole that she is, he grew up in a home that was abusive and thus prefers the abuse, because it's like home. As we will come to see, Imoko has some similarities to that. She prefers the abuse and the messiness of her sister to the point that it's altered her perception and gives her a set of values that on the surface are nice, but deep below are motivated by toxicity. And thus, you guessed it, despite being a goody two-shoes, Imoko in some ways can be just as toxic as her sister is, or at least have some toxic behaviors. She's good at hiding her true nature in that way, but we will talk more about this as the episode develops because there is so much more to talk about with this character. But I do have to admit, I love how unwitting Yani Neko can be at times, like pulling an entire what am I saying? Like pulling an entire carton out of her stomach that she tied to a string, and then her teeth, only to accept the light from her sister. That was so her. Like, Yani Neko keeps proving to the world that she truly only cares about getting a hit of that nicotine. It's consumed her, and now, really, if you think about it, her whole family whole, showing just how destruction is a magnet and can cause everything to collapse inward rather than outward. So, I guess you could say she's a glorious implosion. Also, Metal Gear Solid reference? Yes! Clap that one up. Oh my god. Nyan Nyan Factory. Let me tell you, they know their stuff. We further see that there are people who truly do find Imoko attractive for just who she is, which is rather sweet. A boy in her class asks her out, yet Imoko rejects him. The scene is actually very sweet, and the boy himself, while being a little too excited, talking about marriage in a confession, which, that just may be a cultural thing, so that's not a big deal to me. That just may be something I don't understand. The boy walks away dejected, which then pans up with a text that says in English, "This is a Yani Neko." But the boy just can't give up on Imoko because there is only one Imoko, which is true. And poor guy. Well, either way, Mikoto hears all of this and runs into Imoko, who is carrying notebooks as a way to punish her, which leads to the boy, who's named Shu by the way, to come and help Imoko as Mikoto feels rejected herself. Mikoto clearly has feelings for Shu when Imoko doesn't, which is frustrating, because to her, she would take that shot if she could and feels that Imoko is wasting what could be a good relationship with a good boy. This is important for Imoko's character as it brilliantly establishes that something is a little odd here, Like, why should she reject Shu, who by all accounts just seems like an all-around good kid? That being said, Mikoto has got support from her friends, even if she feels awful right now, something that we'll have sort of a mirror for later on in the video. Which also leads to our first tease of what will likely be the next cat in the cast. Homeless Neko. Cannot wait to see what she's about. Well, we hear from the cat's mouth herself that the reason she didn't pick Shu is because he is too well put together. And that's because, as we see in the scene after that one, that Imoko smiles after she says, "You are so helpless without me." This is what I mentioned earlier, but said more plainly. Imoko has been messed up by her sister and prefers men who are messy. It's the classic, I want the bad boy, or the garbage boy type of person we're dealing with here. This checks out because Imoko finds genuine pleasure in presenting herself as more human and being something that she, at the very least, is putting on an act to be somewhat. She likes fixing things and wants to fix her sister because it gives her a source of kind of like pride or dignity or progression in her life, something, as well, we'll talk about later. That's important and almost certainly confirmed because of the way Beastfolk are treated in society. They are not allowed to move up the rungs of Earth life because of racism, prejudice, and a rigged society. Therefore, the only way Imoko feels that she can move forward is by fixing Yani Neko to a degree. She doesn't like Shu not because he's put together exactly, but because there isn't anything to fix. He's perfect. He's normal. He's everything a girl would want. That's a problem, somehow. But she can't be with him because she feels she is not that. She can't show a boy love if her perception of love is showing it through trying to fix someone. This is why family is such a complex talking point and important in understanding your own family history and working through problems, because problems don't go away unless you can track down the source of these problems. They linger on and they affect every family member forever, even after those family members are gone. So Imoko wants a sloppy guy like Yani Neko. What that would look like is someone who is a total slob. Basically just male Yani Neko. We then slide back on over to Slobby Neko and Yaku Neko for an interesting set of moments, all very dark and sad with undertones. Yaku Neko has an uncontrollable response when someone says number 12. When that is said, she immediately responds with "yes ma'am" and stands completely straight with her tail out. Turns out that sometime later in her life, so not as a child, Yaku Neko was, I guess, implied to be traumatized by some woman who simply called her number 12. This is more or less our second implication, at least, of some form of some kind of slavery or kidnapping for Beastfolk in this society, or at the very least some deeply ingrained societal prejudices against Beastfolk that wouldn't be allowed otherwise in human society or to humans. Yaku Neko at first was somewhat presented as this crackhead or doped up schizo who can't tell a lie to save her life. This one reveal changes everything we previously knew or had thought about Yaku Neko. She is now presented as a victim of society's racism, human trafficking, something against Beastfolk. I wouldn't be surprised if her drug issues were also a product of why she was called number 12. It's not uncommon for governments to flood areas with heavy leanings towards certain demographics with drugs, and based on literally everything we've seen in this series thus far, it wouldn't surprise me that Yaku Neko was a part of something extremely dark. Yikes. Which is why the next scene, where they play the game of life, is so fascinating, yet also extremely depressing, as the outlook for Beastfolk at this point in time is immensely eye-opening. We learn through the game of life that Beastfolk are not allowed to be a variety of roles in society, including teachers, lawyers, doctors, and even scholars. Kanzai Neko makes the comment that because they're not allowed any of these roles, then they are basically relegated to working temporary minimum wage jobs. Hame Neko brings up a great point with the subcontext in her dialogue when she says it's the volatility of the game of life Beastfolk addiction that makes it fun, meaning that Beastfolk live a life of volatility and chaos. Nothing is guaranteed, which we can't confirm based on the fact that Beastfolk are not allowed to be permanent or long-term employees. And it's also implied that if they lie about their race, then they are punished as well, as Yaku Neko says she drew human, but Kanzai Neko scolds her for lying about her race. Yani Neko as well says something very dark, quite relatable, that she must spend all of her money to move to Makita because all she needs to do is cross the finish line to pay off all of her debts. Oh my god, this is This one's too real. What that means is the economy is rigged against Beastfolk, that the point of the system is to create large swaths of people who are permanently in debt and keep a hold of a dream that they won't ever be able to have. It's actually very similar to another capitalistic system in America, where we have that so-called American dream, where if you go to school, you work hard, you pay off your debts, and you'll have everything you could ever dream for, son. This is the way Yani Neko's world is designed too, in a way. Keep the people working and in debt so the rich can get richer and the poor keep arguing with each other about something. They then spin to see who they're married to. Yani Neko gets a Beastfolk marriage. Yani Neko gets a human marriage, leading to a financial advantage. Kansai Neko too gets a human, and Yaku Neko gets a Beastfolk marriage. So, when Yani Neko explains the rules, things get pretty obvious what this scene is trying to set up. Yaku Neko says, don't marry a Beastfolk, they're too much of a physiological difference. They can jump 8 meters high and sneak up on you fast. They can move effortlessly in water, and they smell bad when they dry off. Ugh, they don't ever age. And they meow all the time. They trigger cat allergies, and the child always turns out to be a Beastfolk, somehow. To which Yani Neko literally says those are outdated views. Yeesh! How racist is this society? Like, when Yaku Neko read this, I was like, what? This is extremely racist. Like, imagine what people would say if you replaced Beastfolk with black folk, Asian folk, white folk, whatever. So this is another instance where clearly this edition of the Game of Life was meant to be played with humans in mind to feed them lies about Beastfolk. It also shows that mating with Beastfolk, interestingly, is likely what is triggering these fears too, because if they're specifically leading with never marry a Beastfolk, it means that they're afraid that humans will be, well, they'll eventually go extinct due to all their children becoming Beastfolk. No matter what. It's not too dissimilar to how humans and like Neanderthals mated, and eventually the Neanderthals went extinct. So you could view the way society is being set up as a toothpaste has left the tube scenario, where the arrival of Beastfolk will inevitably mean the extinction of humans. So to slow that down as much as possible, society has implemented all of these hurdles to try and either, well, slow them down or just kill the Beastfolk, or at least contain them to their certain areas, like in Yagamihara as an example. That sounds really dark, a little extreme, but it's true. Every turn is a year, and the goal of the game is to die happy. So Yani Neko dies at 11 years old in the game. Wow! This entire board game scene was easily one of the best things this series has done yet. It was so good. It is a showcase of how society in this world is essentially heartless and rigged. It's good dark comedy that only works with these grim dark messages that I like so much about this series. It explains why so much is wrong with the Beastfolk in this anime, because they've been oppressed ever since arriving to Earth. So while these cats are assholes, they're really easy to root for because of their status as sub-person. And with that being said, I mean, this version of the Game of Life should be renamed to the Game of Life, Racism Edition. This next scene is small, but really showcases the effects of loneliness amongst Beastfolk. Yaku Neko wants to recharge and get out of her head, so she decides to go stag beetle hunting. And look at her. She actually looks really cute here. I think this is the first time a character has looked genuinely adorable in this series, for me at least. Some of y'all need some water. Someone brought up in my last video on Yani Neko, but sometimes the series has like Inuyasha vibes, and actually, like, this was one for me. Yaku Neko asks everyone she can, but they all sort of reject her. Yani Neko in particular was quite unlikable in this episode, and sort of, you know, kind of makes me want to go back on naming her my most sympathetic character. With no self-awareness, she mocks Yaku Neko by stating that she is a 20-year-old unemployed bum still young at heart, which is the actual perfect descriptor for Yani Neko, the unemployed content creator. So yeah, she's fallen down pretty low on the asshole cats tier list. Kansai Neko doesn't go either because she's not into stag beetles. It's revealed here that she recently was fired from her job and is still not recovering from it. The landlord can't go either because of prior obligations, but there is one person who can, Yani Neko. the slob that left her job interview because the smoking area was closed due to maintenance. Now, listen, this is a cute scene with a lot of, well, subcontext to go on that suggests Yaku Neko altogether is suffering from a crippling depression and anxiety issue from her past traumatic experiences. So she uses drugs as a way to self-medicate and take the edge off or completely forget about her troubles. Her going stag beetle hunting was simply just a way for her to clear her head and really just get out of her shell for a moment and recenter herself. And she wanted to do it with someone else so that she wouldn't have to be alone with her thoughts. And what makes this even more sad is that Yaku Neko is viewed as having a good head on her shoulders by others, meaning people like her. She's a good person at heart, but she just has a lot of things troubling her. So when Yani Neko shows up and tags along, I liked this. It was a happy ending to a potentially sad story. It was very heartfelt. And maybe for the first time in the series history, something good came of Yani Neko's smoking habits. While she didn't get the job, she arguably did something, I think, more important than supporting some stupid economy. She was there for someone, for a human being, her friend. And sometimes it's the little things that mean the most to people. So this is your reminder that if there is a lonely guy or girl out there who is your friend and you notice, maybe hang out with them. Create a space for them to be themselves. I did that with my Discord server, link in the description. I'm just practicing what I'm preaching here. But the biggest surprise of this episode easily was the second half, where they go to meet the alphas who grow and produce tobacco. This was so compelling as it features a ton of world building that implies aliens actually exist. And they're the Beastfolk. Remember that totem I mentioned? That's right. That's implied to be the spaceship they came in on. What? So they're the invaders from space, and which is similar to Gamer Supps' new Waifu Cup and V-Cards. However, if you're in the mood for a kick to your morning routine, check out Jujutsu Kaisen Cursed Energy, the official Darling in the Franxx flavor, or just anything you think you may like. Code SeaTactics gets you 10% off all orders. So let's get into one of the craziest lore drops we've ever seen from Yani Neko. If you remember, in one of the previous videos I did, I pointed out a random frame where I saw a cat totem in the mountains. I theorized what that could have been, maybe a spiritual place for Beastfolk to go and worship. I was right about that, but it's a little bit deeper. So apparently this area is where the so-called alpha live. They grow tobacco leaves and make cigarettes. Now what I found to be cute about the packaging is it says Tabaco, which is a play on words for the Tabaco cat, of which I am the proud cat dad of one. She is adorbs. I love her, and she wakes me up at 4 a.m. without fail. They live in a village designated as District 6, which is an important distinction, as we'll talk about later through subcontext. It's also a reference to District 9. Their village is called Tobacco Village. Hame Neko observes their culture and makes the comment that this reminds her of the, I think it's pronounced Human period, which was a period of time between 14,000 and 300 BC, where Japan was inhabited by a hunter-gatherer agriculturist population called the Human. Their civilization eventually went away after they had mixed with the Yayoi people, and that would eventually bring about a new language and a bunch of other cool stuff, but this is not a history lesson. We're just talking about cat aliens now, but I think it's cool to mention it. This is when we meet the chief of this village, Lani, who is friends with Yaku Neko, of all people. So our drug-addicted tomboy cat has more friends than we thought, but there is a reason for this, as we're about to discuss. Yaku Neko asks for some tobacco from Lani, and since it's harvest season, they're flush with the leaf, so they're allowed to indulge in as much as they'd like to. Lani suggests that our cats learn a little bit about their culture and history, which is cool. What follows is really actually deeply fascinating, at least to someone like me. They harvest grapes, make wine out of it as the leaves are dried for 6 months. They then remove the veins before preparing and chopping the leaves. That leaves them with the sweet, sweet finished product that is tobacco. What's most interesting in this culture here, which is that all of them, they're solely dedicated to tobacco production, and if they don't work, then they don't eat and they don't make a living. All of the village seems to be united under the common goal of one, and they seem to be enjoying what they do, and they live in peaceful harmony. This is in contrast to human society that the cats live in, where they do not have harmony or a common culture or ways to contribute. In other words, there is no unity among the cats outside of their oppression. But Lani herself is also a nice person, and allows those like Yani Neko who are lazy, riddled with ADHD, as if she herself is a factory for ADHD, to experience making tobacco. because after all, knowledge is power, and they fail to make any. But they do experience Tabako from the source, and Lani is proud of her village work. It's a source of pride because this is how they make their living, and they know they're good at it. This shows how jobs, even ones considered to be dirty or uncouth, provide dignity to people, and we shouldn't judge that. Contrast that to human society, where cats are not allowed to maintain any form of long-term or permanent employment, and we see just how messed up our cast of clowns are. They're riddled with issues and insecurities, but the people of Tabako Village experience no such issues. Yani Neko is insensitive to other cultures, and so upon smoking the tobacco, starts to hack a lung and proclaims it's not nearly as good as her vape. This coming from the content creator, and as we know, content creators have a very good track record on being highly insensitive. But Lani, on the other hand, as she is confident in her village's customs, doesn't mind and can look past Yani Neko's insensitivities and disrespectful comments. This is once again a product of their work, allowing them to be dignified and to be the bigger people here. So once again, it's important as a human to have a role in society. If anything, this is an example of how important it can be to protect culture too, to respect and keep hold of your past well into the future. This allows not only dignity for cultures as they age, but to also carry an important message and life lesson that guides people into the next eras. Part of this here is tobacco production, which, yeah, that's a bad thing for people to consume objectively, but at the same time offers the people of this village a source of self-worth and commonality. Everyone here is working at the same job and for the same common goal, which is the survival of their species on planet Earth. That being said, it also is more likely than not their key to their futures as well. Society has forced them to produce tobacco as their only way of survival, so that they will always be able to be easily smeared or told that they're just tobacco farmers, which is another subtle form of racism and oppression, but ultimately will not matter in their futures, as like Yani Neko pointed out with the similarities to the Homon period, or the game of life in general, the Homon people admixed at some point. We know that in this episode, the Beastfolk, when mating with humans, always produce more Beastfolk, so in some distant future, planet Earth is going to be overrun with Beastfolk. This is why what they're doing now is important. One day it won't just be tobacco, and one day you will join my Discord community. For a safe and chill environment, you won't want to leave. Assimilate! This is when we learn, finally, of the giant cat totem, which is implied to be an honest-to-God spaceship. Lani calls it the monument enshrining their deity, which means something is in that monument. She goes on to imply that when they arrived on Earth, there was a great battle between the Beastfolk and the humans. So when they make their tobacco, they dedicate every moment of the process to the monument as a testament to their unified dedication as a people to the original ideals and to pay respect to those who died in the conflict with humans. And another way they show this harmony is through the tattoos they have on their hands, together representing a monument that towers towards the sun. The monument, which represents their deity and how far they've come, and the gift that is the sun, which allows their leaf to be grown, giving them reason to exist and have their dignity. Yani Neko, in her, in a way, infinite wisdom, as the other cats look on in horror of what they know she is about to say, seemingly, says, "Those symbols look like a pee-pee and a hoo-ha." Lani has had enough. She pulls out the ray gun and nearly obliterates Yani Neko. Amazing animation, by the way. So instead of choosing just to kill Yani Neko and put her out of her misery, she just kills a part of the forest in her place. So this confirms, much like the strange tech that we saw in the last episode in the hospital, that when the Beastfolk came to Earth, they brought with them technologies far beyond that of humanity's, including ray guns. This is such a crazy twist I never saw coming. And once again, as the episodes of this series pass on each week, more depth is shown, and as more of these details are revealed, the story of Yani Neko becomes recontextualized into a highly political commentary, a political story about people trying to find their place in the world while suffering through societal issues like inequality and racism, which is not a specific issue only located in one or two parts of the world. It's everywhere, including Japan, which has historically been very racist at times. This makes the comedy in the story and the world of Yani Neko just, I think, so much better, because it's different. It's not just a normal power fantasy harem isekai series about grooming minors. It's about real life issues, which grounds the series despite it being about Beastfolk addicts who shit their pants. In other words, True authentic comedy. We learn a little bit more about the culture of the Alpha. To beg for mercy, they must climb the monument and bungee jump down. So Yani Neko and Hame Neko, they're more or less forced to do it. Hame Neko doesn't understand that vines wrapped together are just as strong as the normal kind of rope, which a little funny, but also sad. Though I do love whatever face Yaku Neko is making here. This is gonna live forever in my dreams. Yani Neko, for no reason, by the way, just wanted to clarify. Yani Neko points out that they could die from this height, but Ilani asks if she is afraid to die because in the Alpha culture there is a saying, keep death close and treat it as your companion, which is about the most Alpha thing a person could say. To not be afraid of death is the very process of embracing life itself, after all. That's the deepest thing I said today. Don't know what it meant, but Yani Neko then says she can't smoke if she dies, so she jumps as soon as Lonnie says they'll send her home with a bunch of tobacco if she does this. Now, I love this. It just shows that Yani Neko is dedicated to her addiction. You know, and I want to say this too, because I think this is really cool. I've gotten a lot of comments doing these videos from real addicts and former addicts who are supporters of what I say in these videos. They're just really like cool people, and they tell me these stories about how they truly would act like Yani Neko. Like their dedication to their addiction is so strong that they would do exactly what she did here for Smokes. So I guess the lesson there is just addiction is very serious, and Yani Neko is a very good PSA on how addiction actually looks like. Her being so nonchalant even during the fall and having no sense of fear is really, if you think about it, due to her addiction. And isn't that just a little crazy, a little sad? Makes me feel a little bit more sympathetic towards Yani Neko for some reason. But I'm you know, at the same time, I'm sort of through with Hame Neko at this point. Like, easily for a character, the biggest fall of grace. I'm not saying she's a bad character or anything like that, but she's just, I find her annoying now. Literally, as Lonnie kicks her off the edge of the monument, she pees herself. And you know what from The Thrill, and the great memory of Hank Hill. That cat ain't right. Either way, no matter how you dice the leaf, they earn the respect of Lonnie and are welcome to come back at any time. And all two of them enjoyed it, while Hame Neko never wants to go back. And what's better is they gave her the nickname Rainbow Maker on the account of her pissing herself mid-jump. Deserved. Well earned. The scene ends on learning that the Alpha are called that because they are the first, meaning the Alpha are, as suggested by the subcontext, the descendants of the first Beastfolk to come to planet Earth. That's a pretty cool world-building moment. I love this episode, and I love that whole section. It was so good. The final scene really does a good job at wrapping up the themes with Imoko for this episode, and I really appreciated it because it was different than what you'd usually see in other anime in similar scenes. Imoko catches a cicada and hears people talking about her on account that her ears are super sensitive because, you know, she's a cat. So she is able to hear all of the gossip of people who don't understand Imoko or think she is scary. Basically, she hears the racism. However, not all humans are racist, and her friends come with disposable chopsticks for her to eat with so that she won't spend all of her time washing them away from everyone and avoiding people. So while Imoko may have been broken by society and by her sister, she still has people who are looking out for her just as she looks out for Yani Neko. At the end of the day, really, that's all that matters, and that's what makes Imoko happy. She tries her best, and I hope for the love of God those friends can convince her to date that human boy, because just like each and every one of you watching right now, you guys aren't too far gone that you don't deserve someone who is good for you. Y'all need your own shoe cross Imoko. You'll find it eventually. I have hope. As for Yani Neko, she once again embraces her nature by eating a cicada, showing how feral she can be, and while similar to Imoko, how dissimilar they can be in how they act. But there are a couple of things we need to talk about before we head off. For one, Imoko wears her skirt lower than the other human girls. This is a subtle implication that Imoko, yeah, she's a good girl who continues to do the right things even in how she dresses modestly. Her human friends, however, they hike up their skirts. Imoko doesn't want the attention of other people, or at least doesn't want to stand out in general. But on top of that, this is crazy. Did you catch it? Yani Neko answered a question we've all been wondering about cat girls and Nekos for years, decades, eons. Do they have two sets of ears? The answer is no. They do not have human ears and only have ears on their heads. Pretty cool, right? We love to see it. But as Yani Neko progresses in its story, it's also important to remember that our understanding of the world of Yani Neko is really similar to our own, especially when last week Yani Neko called out the entire manga industry. You can check that video right here. Make it a great day or not, the choice is yours.